This video is brought to you by Audible. Dokurojima no Shugoshin, guardian deity of Skull Island, the mountain who thunders death, the Titanus Kong. Hey guys, what's happening? Nihat here with Film Comics Explained, and it's my pleasure to be exploring the one and only King Kong, as featured in Legendary's Monsterverse. Based on the monster first introduced in Merian C. Cooper and Ernest B. Schoedsack's 1933 adventure film, King Kong, widely considered to be one of the greatest films of all time, Legendary's Titanus Kong is a giant ape-like titan that first appeared in Jordan Vogt-Roberts' 2017 monster film, Kong: Skull Island. Standing at a height of 104 feet and weighing over 158 tons, the tall, bipedal and long-armed Kong is the second largest incarnation to appear throughout the creature's cinematic history. The mighty beast is a primate of such size and ferocity that his very existence, along with that of the other creatures on Skull Island, helped rewrite every chapter of evolutionary theory. More mountain than mammal, his towering form and long strides would shake the ground beneath him with each thunderous step. Though he shares a common ancestry with apes, Kong is an entirely new superspecies beyond any existent categorization of life on the planet, leading Monarch to designate him and the other kaiju they discovered as titans. Worshipped as though he were a god by the native iwi, as featured in the film and comic book series which was illustrated by my good friend Yazid, his good deeds and very presence inspired a culture of reverence among the indigenous peoples of the island. Although Kong's ancestors had once ruled the island as benevolent caretakers, the emergence of the foul breed of apex predators known as the Skullcrawlers challenged their reign. The war that followed between the two super predators, which raged for millennia, would see the numerous Skullcrawlers lay waste to his entire species, leaving Kong as the only heir to a kingdom forgotten by time.
Kong is film history. It's what blew open the doors for so many people on what was possible or imaginable with cinema. What we're doing is trying to pay homage to that and then create something incredible and new and fresh.
To bring Kong to the screen, the geniuses at Industrial Light and Magic spent over 8 months designing him during the pre-production phase. The aim was simple, to make Kong into an enormous compelling anti-hero that looked real and displayed humanistic qualities that would allow viewers to empathize with him. The team at ILM had wanted him to be a tribute to his predecessors, and at the same time, to look less like a giant ape and more like a benevolent god. To this end, the design team made him into a bipedal creature that walked in an upright position, harkening back to the famous 1933 version, while Kong's god status was attained as a byproduct of his immense size, as well as his acts of benevolence and wrath. In the film, Kong was portrayed through the use of CGI, aided by performance motion capture from Terry Notary, who provided a reference point for his movements, while Toby Kebbell provided reference material for his face. This was then combined with photos and videos that were taken of gorillas at the San Francisco Zoo, enabling the visual effects team to make him look more realistic. The amount of work that went into making Kong come to life can't be overstated. His CGI body had over 600,000 polygon references in each frame, along with his face, which alone had at least 300,000. This is in addition to the complex muscle fibers, bones, joints, skin, injuries, and over 17 million hairs that were digitally rendered to give us a beautiful representation of the towering behemoth. As mentioned earlier, Kong is the last living member of his species of giant apes native to Skull Island, the mysterious location described by Monarch founding member William Randa as being an emergence point for massive unidentified terrestrial organisms, colloquially known as mutos. The prequel comic book for the movie, titled Skull Island: The Birth of Kong, gave us flashbacks which detailed Kong's ancestors and his birth. These windows into the past established that Kong's species had been living on the island for millions of years. According to Lieutenant Hank Marlowe, when the indigenous iwi tribe had arrived on the island, waves of their people had been slaughtered by the enormous reptilian skullcrawlers, were it not for Kong's family, who fought the ravenous skull devils to protect them and maintain the fragile balance. The iwi tribe would have been eradicated. By the time that the iwis finished building their settlement, all of Kong's species, save for his mother and father, had been killed in their efforts to drive the skullcrawlers back below ground. When Kong's mother had begun going into labor with her son, the devilish skullcrawlers used this to their advantage and began overwhelming them. Kong's father did his best to fight them off as his partner gave birth, and once Kong was born, his mother sealed him in a cave and joined his father in the battle. Unfortunately for the peaceful inhabitants of the island, both of them were overcome by the reptilian horde and died side by side, as their son watched in horror through a small gap in the cave. After seeing the bodies of his parents who died with their hands held together, Kong wept and devoted his entire life to continuing their war and assumed the role of the island's protector. While his first few encounters saw him retreating and gathering his strength to fight another day, when he finally reached adolescence, Kong successfully drove the Skullcrawlers underground and kept the peace. That was of course until the ignorant Monarch expedition team arrived and began dropping seismic charges to develop a map of the island, unintentionally luring the Skullcrawlers out of the depths and back into the open.
Well, you don't go into someone's house and start dropping bombs unless you're picking a fight.
Despite being shown to have a relatively soft and peaceful side, as seen when he helped a scared buffalo after it had been trapped under the wreckage of a helicopter, and assisted Mason Weaver when she'd fallen into a river during his fight with a skullcrawler, Kong also had an extremely fierce and aggressive temperament. This violent facet of his personality would, however, only arise when something threatened the peace he aimed to maintain. His combat techniques and interactions with many of the characters also showcased his intelligence. This is evident with his ability to take advantage of his surroundings while fighting, his use of tools as weapons, and his capacity to differentiate his allies from his enemies. Despite his bouts of violence, his empathetic nature was clear to the Iwi tribe. It's also highlighted during a scene in which he befriended Weaver and Conrad, sharing a heartfelt moment with them after witnessing Weaver's compassion and capacity for kindness. Not only does Kong put the defense of the island as his first priority, but his confidence and will is so strong that he's willing to stand up to the other Titans, as noted in the official Godzilla King of the Monsters novelization. In it, we discover that Kong was able to resist the alpha call of King Ghidorah, which awakens most of the other Titans around the globe and bends them to his will. We also see snippets alluding to this at the end of the film. Due to his immense size and arm-to-body proportions, Kong was shown to be an incredible climber, seen scaling cliffs and mountain faces with ease. His size also lent itself to his durability and stamina, with Kong seen withstanding the onslaught and barrage of weapons fire from the military helicopters that would have quickly brought down his 1933 and 2005 counterparts. Despite his size, Kong is surprisingly swift and agile, quickly dodging attacks from skullcrawlers and helicopters and managing to speedily traverse the island to respond to threats. His heightened sense of hearing and superb vision, which enabled him to spot people and creatures in the dead of night, coupled with his immense strength, gave him a tremendous evolutionary advantage against the skullcrawlers. In contrast to Godzilla, whose body was covered with thick protective scales, Kong had no armor and was more prone to injuries. We see this vulnerability when the palm of his hand was wounded by the blades of a helicopter, and with Kong collapsing from the napalm attack coordinated by Packard's troops. In addition to this, his healing factor was also much slower than Godzilla's, who could use nuclear energy to speed up his recovery. Even with the wounds he'd sustained from his confrontations with the soldiers, the skullcrawlers, and the large number of unique predators on the island, Kong's willpower enabled him to defeat the enormous Skull Devil that had killed his parents, solidifying his place as a rightful king of Skull Island. Unlike every single iteration of the magnificent beast we've seen, from the 1933 and 2005 versions which showed him being shot by planes and plummeting to his death, to the 1976 adaptation in which he also fell and remained in a comatose state before eventually succumbing to heart failure, the Kong we see in the Monsterverse survives at the end. One of my favourite things about this movie is that not only do we see him survive, but his first interaction with the troops sees him obliterating the choppers in an epic display, with Roberts demonstrating early on that this Kong was unlike anything we'd ever seen. It's important to note that the version of Kong we see in the film was an adolescent that was yet to reach full maturity, and with the upcoming Godzilla vs. King Kong, which is set roughly 50 years after Kong's first appearance, it's likely that it will be much larger and more powerful than anything we've seen so far. This will be crucial in making the matchup between the two titans fairer, as Godzilla is pretty overpowered. Having said that, considering these behemoths have been depicted as benevolent protectors, their confrontation will likely be resolved in the first half of the film, and we'll probably see them teaming up against a more malevolent foe. Based on the end titles featured in Godzilla King of the Monsters, I think it's safe to say that Godzilla vs. King Kong will be set on Skull Island, where Monarch appears to be sending their scientists and troops to locate the origins of the Titans. This will likely tie into Houston Brooks' Hollow Earth theory proposed in Kong Skull Island, where the Monarch seismologist explained his belief that there were underground spaces and passageways leading to a primordial land that the Titans were coming from. We also see glimpses of Skull Island at the end of King of the Monsters, and a final shot revealing a cave painting of a Titanus Kong and Godzilla battling it out, indicating that it wouldn't be the first time Godzilla had fought Kong's species. The brief amount of information I've been able to gather about the new movie hints at humanity being in the process of developing something that could wipe out the Titans, in response to the carnage and destruction they've been wreaking on the world. My intuition also tells me that the weapon humanity has created will be Mecha King Ghidorah, made from the severed head discovered at the end of King of the Monsters, and that Godzilla and Kong will have a sparring session before teaming up to defeat the human-made robotic Titan. This will tie into the theme of humanity versus nature, which has been developing in each of the MonsterVerse movies up until now. And as I'm sure you've already noticed, nature always wins.
Die, you motherfucker.
With all that having been said, I have to take a moment and talk about Audible, who've partnered with Film Comics Explained for this video. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks. Every month, members are entitled to 1 credit to pick any title of their choice, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, as well as access to daily news and guided meditation programs. I'm a massive fan of the written word, but sometimes I struggle to find the time. This is one of the reasons I love Audible, as it allows me to listen to great titles on any device, whether I'm in the car, on public transport, or in the office. If you want to give Audible a try, go to audible.com/Film Comics Explained, or text Film Comics Explained to 500 500 and start listening with an exclusive 30-day trial with 1 free audiobook of your choice and 2 Audible originals absolutely free.
We're all gonna die together out here. You're a good group of boys to die with, I'll tell you that much. You shouldn't have come here.
Well, that's all for today, folks. A huge thanks to everyone who requested we explore the Titanus King Kong.
Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification icon to stay up to date on all my content. And if there's anything else you'd like to request, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Nihat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
5-6, we got nominal control. We are going down.